When you've been in a relationship for almost a decade, you think you know someone. I thought I knew Jake. We had been together for 8 years, living in a cozy apartment, talking about getting married someday, and maybe even starting a family. Jake was charming, ambitious, and incredibly dedicated to his job. He worked as a project manager at a mid-sized tech firm, often putting in long hours to climb the corporate ladder. At first, I admired his drive. I loved how passionate he was about his career. But over time, his work began to take priority over everything else: date nights, family gatherings, and even weekends away. He always had a reason: the client needs this ASAP, or we're short-staffed right now, I have to step up. I believed him because, why wouldn't he was my partner, my best friend. Things started to change about 6 months ago. Jake began mentioning a coworker named Allison in casual conversations. Allison suggested this great Thai place for lunch, or Allison and I stayed late to finalize the presentation. I didn't think much of it at first. I trusted Jake, and he had always worked well with others. But as time went on, her name started popping up more frequently, too frequently. One evening, Jake came home unusually late. He said he had been at a team dinner, but he smelled faintly of perfume. Not my perfume, and not something I recognized. When I asked about it, he shrugged it off, saying, "Oh, Allison gave me a quick hug goodbye. She's always wearing some flowery stuff." I laughed it off at the time, but the uneasiness stayed with me. The turning point came a few weeks later when Jake forgot his laptop at home. He called me, frantic, asking if I could drop it off at his office. I agreed, happy to help. When I arrived, his coworker greeted me warmly and directed me to Jake's desk. As I set the laptop down, I noticed a small photo frame on his desk, a picture of Jake and Allison at what looked like a holiday party. They were standing too close, her hand resting on his chest. Something inside me snapped. I thanked the coworker and left without saying anything. But that night, I couldn't shake the image from my mind. Why did he have a picture of her on his desk? Why hadn't he mentioned it? Over the next few days, I started to piece things together. Jake had become increasingly secretive about his phone, taking calls in another room and brushing off my questions about his day. He was texting more than usual, always with a slight smirk on his face. When I casually mentioned Allison one evening, he became defensive, accusing me of being paranoid. I decided to trust my gut. One afternoon, I took a half-day off work and waited near Jake's office. When his workday ended, I saw him walking out with Allison. They were laughing, his hand lightly brushing her back as they made their way to a nearby cafe. I followed them, my heart pounding. They sat in a corner booth, sharing a dessert and holding hands. The final nail in the coffin came when I saw Jake lean in to kiss her. I felt a mix of fury and heartbreak. I stormed into the cafe, walked straight up to their table, and said, "Enjoy your dessert, Jake. You're going to need all the sweetness you can get after what I'm about to do." The look on his face was priceless: shock, guilt, and panic all rolled into one. Allison looked horrified, clearly unaware of my existence. That night, I packed my things and left. Jake called me repeatedly, begging for forgiveness, saying it was just a mistake and that he would do anything to fix it. But some mistakes are too big to forgive. I moved in with a friend while I got back on my feet and started therapy to process the betrayal. Looking back, I see all the red flags I ignored: the late nights, the defensiveness, the constant mentions of Allison. But I also see my strength. I refused to let Jake's actions define me or diminish my worth.